Suddenly I find myself hoovering, dusting, washing loads and loads of laundry, getting the cleaners in to do the bathroom. Sunday and Monday were both hot, sunny days, and it felt a bit like spring cleaning in a funny kind of a way, a bit like sort of a modern equivalent of tidying your pencil case and buying a new protractor, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
and it sort of steadied me for the new term.
Welcome to Own It, Your Business and Your Life, with Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. In this podcast, we're going to cover everything you need to embrace to become a successful entrepreneur, marketing, money, and much, much more. How to create a business doing just what you love. How to own it, your business and your life. This one will be fast, funny, feisty, and very lively. So sit back and enjoy the show.
Hello, Judith. How are you?
I'm marvellous, Nicola. How are you?
I'm marvellous too. Effervescent, that's me.
Oh, good. I can't say I'm always effervescent anymore, but it sounds nice, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've had an interesting week. A very old friend from the olden days has arrived with his wife and daughter. It's started with a late night conversation on Skype and I said something along the lines of, you should come and visit sometime. And he then went and looked at flights, and I thought, oh, this is going to be serious. Ended up turning up for 10 days, and we've put them up next door in our friend's house, and they're having a really lovely time. They're absolutely delightful to spend time with, which is a pleasure. It's nice. We've spent quite a lot of time bobbing about in the sea because it's very salty, so you don't have to work too hard to stay upright. And we've ended up going into business together, which is quite interesting because he's got a real big expertise in joint ventures. He's a big joint venture person, but he doesn't have any expertise in getting that knowledge out of his head and turning it into a trading course and things. And funnily enough, when I drove across America in 2016, when we shared a car with each other for the day, we talked about this as well. Because he really would love to have something for himself, apart from the other projects he's involved in. And it wasn't the right time then because I came home, then I went to Australia, then Steve died, and it all sort of fell by the wayside. But I'm ready now, and I'm doing it for Jane, as you know, with Secret Art of Huna. Mm-hmm. And this is an identical kind of project, but with a different topic. So It's quite nice to have a different slant to it, although it's still in the personal development world, which means...
You can't tell us about the topic yet?
Yes, I can, as a matter of fact. jointventuremasters.com.
And there was that chap that did that, wasn't there? What was his name? Do you remember?
Well, there was someone called Sahal Khan who did it.
Yes,
him. I haven't heard anything of him for the last few years.
No, that's right. No.
And I did a bit of a search, and there was a couple of other people, Dan Locke and Reed Florin, who are, again, I haven't heard anything of either of them for a long time now.
Okay.
And it's quite a small specialism, but this chap really is, he's a people person. He loves putting deals together. He loves putting people together. And he runs one of the biggest personal development masterminds in the world, which is 120 people who get together in Las Vegas every year. And they do deals with each other. That's the whole purpose of it. And he organises all of that and really has put some very big deals together. And I was thinking about going anyway this year because I've got a standing invitation because my new client's in the personal development world. So I was thinking, that would be a place to get her some really big joint venture deals. And
it's also your spiritual home, or it used to be once. Do you remember?
It is, I think.
It may not be anymore, I think.
Well, I don't know. Yes, I think it probably is. I haven't played poker for years, so I don't know. So we were bobbing about in the sea, and we were just saying how funny it was that we weren't really ready to go for it after the car ride, but we both feel ready to go for it now. So we've been doing some recording while on various balconies and things, and I'm really excited. So there's my membership site which is coming on really strongly now. There's the secretartofhuna.com, and now there's jointventuremasters.com, and I think I'm going to close the door at that point.
I think that's enough, don't you?
Yeah. Well, it is on the done for you front, definitely. Yeah. But on the advice and mentoring front, I can obviously take on many more people. So and then my brother's just announced he's arriving next Friday because he's been made redundant from his job of 18 years. I think he's worked there, and they've paid him for a year. And we said it's a good time to get out of your normal routine when you're facing a big change like that. So
that's true.
And he turns up at Athens Airport next Friday.
Oh.
With a one-way ticket.
Oh.
So Sarah's here, but she's about to go off and do a couple of house sits, so that's quite convenient.
Yeah.
And,
now, where's she doing her house sits back in the UK?
No, she's doing one up the hill here with dogs and chickens and all sorts, and in a really beautiful villa. And then she's going over to Agios Nikolaos to do 2 dogs and a couple of cats who we've met.
Brilliant.
Lovely.
Brilliant.
Yes.
Now, obviously, I know who you're talking about with your joint Masters, and I'm not going to mention his name, but of course, I've been on holiday with him and his lovely wife too in New York City, 2005.
Yeah.
And we had a marvellous day out. Him and his wife and me and my friend, and he's a very funny man, a very kind man, a very intelligent man. He's a big bear of a lovely person. I've really got, tell him from me, I've got yards of respect for him, but remind him when all 4 of us went for a massage. We got off the circular bus and we all went for a massage, and we were all in a big room separated by 4 curtains. And what we couldn't agree on after we came out from the massage, it was so funny, was had we been ninjured, we thought the 4 massage people had actually got up on a pole hanging from the ceiling and used their feet to walk on our backs, but because we were face down, none of us actually knew.
Oh, I'll think about that.
And then we met you and Steve wearing ear flap hats in a Chinese restaurant somewhere.
Yeah, I think it was. Yes, I remember in fact, I probably still have the ear flap hat. It's probably one of the only, because the white one made me feel like a Russian princess, and Steve's black one, I obviously kept that from and stuffed it inside mine. And I think it's one of the only possessions left in one suitcase, which is being moved as we speak from Irving's girlfriend's garage to where's it going? Oh, it's going to our dad's house, who's just arrived from New Zealand.
Why is Irving moving house? Why is it coming out of his
garage?
garage?
He is. He's been making noises about giving up the flat that the kids live in for a while, and that they should look for something else. And he's going to move in with his girlfriend, and they're going to then sell her house, downsize, and do a lot more travelling.
Marvellous. And what are the kids going to do?
They're going to find somewhere else to live, or they might take. They might take over the flat they're in, but because that would be the easiest thing, is just to get a third in there to pay it, and it's very reasonable. It's right in the centre of the town they want to live, so if that can be managed, then that's what they'll do. But they did go to look at some other places, and they fell in love with one gorgeous place, but they didn't get it because they're too young. Young adults who are not as responsible looking as some of the other.
No.
So what about you this week then?
Oh, I wasn't in the mood to go back to work on Monday at all. It's definitely in my DNA, the hangover from the end of school summer holidays. There was briefly, there isn't, it's gone again now, but there was briefly an autumnal nip. And that brings on a sadness, dread for me of the new school term, which is completely unrelated to the life I live now. But it's we're so impressionable when we're school children. That just embeds itself in you and it's there forever. But the good thing I know about myself is that I only have to talk to a couple of clients and get my body clock back from 3 o'clock in the morning until lunchtime, which is where I like to go, or rather where it slinks round to in a month off. I only need to get it back to approximately 9 to 5, and within 48 hours I'm firing on all cylinders again. But this week it took a rather strange an unusual turn in that my hostess was away on Monday and Tuesday for her father's 80th birthday, and that gave me the opportunity to, was strangely, because I never get this urge, to tidy and clean my own spaces within her house. So, Monday, sunny, I thought, well, I'll get the sheets on to launder. So suddenly I find myself hoovering, dusting, washing loads and loads of laundry, getting the cleaners in to do the bathroom. Sunday and Monday were both hot, sunny days, and it felt a bit like spring cleaning in a funny kind of a way, a bit like sort of a modern equivalent of tidying your pencil case and buying a new protractor, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
and it sort of steadied me for the new term. By lunchtime, in the afternoon, Monday afternoon and evening, I did loads of clients. It was quite an international afternoon. It was France, Portugal, France, I think, on Monday afternoon and evening, and then another client on Tuesday, and then bam, I'm back. That's it. Literally, that's all it takes to get me back. But the weekend before is like, I don't want to do this. I could potter for the rest of my life on holiday. You know this about me, and you're getting quite good at it too, actually. Anyway, I've got some other things in this section I didn't get a chance to tell you about last week that I'd done also in August. I went down to Weymouth, which is where my mother grew up. And the younger sister of my oldest school friend and her husband live right next door to my grandparents' farm. And it's only an hour from here. And so I planned to visit again. But I got to go to the church where my parents were married just a few days after what would have been their 65th wedding anniversary. And it's in a little Dorset village called way, which also has a wishing well. And you know how, again, childhood memories. I had this childhood memory that from the village, we used to climb up an enormous hill, and we had to open gate after gate after gate so that the farm animals couldn't escape. And it was a faff, and it took ages, and the children had to get out of the car and open the gates and all of this. Well, you know, when you're an adult, life is so different. First of all, the gates aren't there anymore. I'm assuming that's because the nature of farming has changed. But as I'm going from the village, a very short distance to my friend's house, just before we get to the point where my grandparents' farm is, and I didn't know precisely where it was, I went, oh my God, it's going to be the farm. I kind of got this premonition, because after they sold the farm, which was before we went away to boarding school, so before I was 10, they sold this farm. We loved it so much, we used to go back on school outings, because my school was not more than an hour away. All of us, my mum, my dad, me and my brother, and we would sit up on what felt like the top of a hill and look down over this beautiful farm. Well, it wasn't a very high hill, and there were no gates, and it wasn't a long way. It was extraordinary. It was all kind of much smaller now, but no less magical, funnily enough. That was a fun thing. I also found the bungalow that they retired to, and again, I couldn't remember the name of the road, and I just came upon it. But I wasn't. It was still that was when I came back from London, and I wasn't feeling very well, so I wasn't well enough to go and actually visit the farm. And Sue, the lady I had dinner with that night, my school friend's sister, who I know from school, obviously, and a few times since then, and we had dinner at their house, and her husband said, I think this is the salad bowl you gave us for our wedding, Judith, which was like 40 years ago or something. But I am going to go back and visit them again, because Sue is very close to the woman who now owns the farm, and I'll be able to go and visit the farm and everything. It doesn't look in the least bit like it did, you know, when I was below 10. And I should tell you, Nicola, you should never have gone there, because it was full of the S words.
Was it?
It was. Anyway, you are.
Outside or inside?
No. Well, we used to call it Granny's S house. Oh. I'm not saying the word out loud because I don't want to freak you, but you know what I'm talking about. Because, of course, in when my mother lived there, it would have been from 1929 till something like, when she got married, 1953. And you didn't have central heating. You barely had an inside toilet in those days. You know, it's all quite, and so we don't have too many of the things you don't like anymore because of the way we live now. But they live cheek by jowl with the human beings on a farm.
Yes, I can imagine.
Yeah.
It's that time of year people started showing the things that come in.
Yes.
The largest speech version.
Yes.
And, you know, when I'm scrolling through with one eye open in my bed on the Facebook timeline, and suddenly, you know, a large offending item.
I didn't really understand what you meant about that, because how could people do that? The only way they could protect you is not posting their photographs at all, isn't it?
Well, that's what I was suggesting, that they don't do that.
Well, of course, that's not going to happen, is it?
Yeah, well, Alex says that whenever he posts one of the ones he gets in his, penthouse flats in Sydney, he blocks me from seeing them.
So yes, you can share with your friends except Nicola, of course.
So, yeah.
Yes, you can do that.
So there you go, everybody listening. If you're that kind of person who likes to post those pictures, then share with everyone except Nicola.
Well, you may not be their friend. Why would you see their stuff in your timeline if you weren't their friend?
Well, exactly. Yes, good point. But
anyway, there you go.
I'm friends with lots of people.
I haven't finished yet. We're moving swiftly on from the S's.
Okay.
The low carb group, the pilot group, we discovered. Actually, when I went to visit my beautician in London, she told me that she'd lost 9 pounds in a week on the low carb, and it accelerated it by taking a daily combination of apple cider vinegar and lemon. And when I came back, I've ordered supplies of both of those, and I don't think it's accelerated my weight loss, but it's seen off my summer cold and cough symptoms within a few days. So, you know, I like Dr. Google. I don't go to the doctors myself, but I prescribed apple cider vinegar and lemon, and it's gone. And at the beginning of August, I went to my favourite posh pub in a pretty village that I like, which has these amazing driving views of Wiltshire's sweeping valleys. And I did a face-to-face coaching session, which I never like, before a lovely alfresco lunch, which I always do.
Absolutely. Yeah, face-to-face is funny old business, isn't it?
Only because we've been trained to do it by ear, you and I.
Yeah.
You see. So all the stuff they give you face-to-face, which so many coaches like, just distracts from our skill set.
It does, yes. But there are a lot of coaches who swear by it.
Well, and this particular client always wanted it from the beginning, and I said, no, I don't do that. But if she can possibly get me to do it, she will. And I think I've played cash flow with her once, and She confessed on this occasion to slightly tricking me into it by telling me that she was holidaying nearer to me than she actually was. But by then we were sitting across the table from one another. And it was her birthday, and we did have lobster and some sparkly pink English wine, Prosecco.
Oh, very nice.
Yes, very nice.
Good. Okay, so what's fueled your fire then?
You go first.
Okay, I have, my client Jane of secretartofhuna.com has filled 2 workshops, and we're working on filling the 3rd now. She's filled and delivered 2 workshops from a standing start. You know, it's a low-hanging fruit thing. When you start a new thing and you shake all your contacts, some fall out, and that's the low-hanging fruit. But she's just had a booking from someone completely cold whose name she doesn't recognise at all.
Oh, we love those. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
At least a stranger in my diary. Lovely. You know the marketing's working when you have that, don't you?
Yeah, delicious strangers in my diary, I think we decided to call them, didn't we?
Yeah.
And so I'm very thrilled with that. And as I say, she's off to Hawaii for a month, and I'll be cracking on with everything in the meantime.
And she did her first one in an Oxford college, I think, didn't she?
Jesus College.
And she said that people loved the venue, of which, of course, they would if you've never been to an Oxford college. That's quite an impressive thing.
Yes, it's lovely. It's her own college, in fact. She was one of the first female people to be into.
Indeed. Jesus.
Yeah, exactly. So that's fueling my fire nicely, and it's making me learn new skills, and it's making me, put together a perfect funnel from start to finish, which I always enjoy. What about you?
Well, a new notebook, obviously. A new term deserves a new notebook, and I've got a very lovely notebook here. A new Club 100 client who I start with this afternoon. September is a great time of year for new intakes. Yeah. And waking from a dream during August, I had this genius idea, and it was something to do with all the NLP and hypnosis stuff I learned from Paul McKenna at the beginning of my coach training. So 2002, 3, 4, 5, I did loads of work with Paul McKenna, and I really like him. And you and I did that book with the havening technique in it. Do you remember? And I thought, and the dream, the nudge from the dream was, look, this is going to help your low carb clients with their cravings. And you remember that the havening technique that he taught us is a bit like EFT and tapping. So last week I did my first EFT session with them, and we all loved it and we all felt better. So the dream nudge was, EFT will help people reduce their cravings, Judith. Oh yes, so it will. Yeah. And so that was cool, groovy.
Very good. I didn't do that havening bit. I just went straight onto the meditations, which I enjoyed enormously. And that reminds me, we've never come back to Michael Neal, have we? We have to talk about it.
No, I've forgotten all about it now. So from my perspective, there would be no point in coming back to it. So I completed my impossible task and I've moved on, really.
Right, fair enough.
But just to finish on the havening technique, that's about behavioural change. And what they want in this 90 days is to give up their cravings, which is a behavioural change. Do you see? So it's a perfect match.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see that. Okay, so what's our focus of the week then?
Yes, well, I've got to open up a new Word document, so bear with, caller. Some interesting feedback I had from a newsletter reader, and I've written about this in last Friday's newsletter, so I've slightly outed the story, but for the listener who doesn't read my newsletter, which I think is the majority of them, I had a piece of reader feedback from a woman I've known since, and you would know her too if I told you her name, but I'm not going to. I'm going to protect her privacy. I've known her since the middle of the noughties, something like 2005, maybe 2006. She's been to my house. She's very woo-woo. She's very abundant. She's bought me presents. She's been to money gym workshops. She's a good person to know. And she's in my Ask Judith group. Anyway, she sent me an email that said, "Hi Judith, I'm not sure if I've just unsubscribed from all your lists. I only wanted to unsubscribe from the low carb information. I'd still like to receive your Friday regular. Warmly, her name."
Yeah.
And I replied, "They are one and the same. I only have one list, sorry." And she said, "Okay, I love you enough to stay and simply not read/delete the carb related emails." And then she said, ironically, as you'll see later, she said, "Can you resubscribe me for your newsletter, please?" And then she says, it may be worth having a chat with Nicola about segmenting. How do you say that word? Segmenting.
Yeah.
Segmenting. / creating different email lists for different projects, as people interested in one may be put off by the other. Also, double check GDPR, as my understanding of that is that if I have someone sign up for X emails, I only have permission to talk to them about that. And if I want to tell them in more than a passing fashion about my Y project, I have to get additional permission for that. Big love. So my question to you is, before I reveal how I replied, how would you have replied to that?
I would have worked very hard on being polite while telling her that I do it exactly how I like and that she was wrong about the GDPR thing.
Well, interestingly, if she was right about the GDPR thing, asking me to resubscribe her certainly was against the rules of that. So I said, well, if you'd like to resubscribe in view of GDPR, please go back to my website and do that yourself. Yeah, because that's the whole point of GDPR, isn't it? People opting in, not being opted in. And
the added step of clicking a link, clicking a box to confirm that you want to, people.
Yeah. So that was rather fun. That aspect of it.
Yeah. I don't segment my list for my newsletter either. I do a roundup kind of newsletter every week, much like yourself, and I talk about whatever I like in it. If people don't like it, they can unsubscribe. But when I'm doing marketing emails, I do send people's and whenever I start a marketing campaign, I either get people to click on something that tags them that they're interested in this new thing, and then I mark it to just those people who've done that. And but you've decided that you want to keep things simple, and that's absolutely fine. And people who like you will skip over the bits that they're not interested.
Well, I'm not going to send endless amounts of information about low carbing. I sent one called Baggy Trousers on a Saturday, and I don't imagine most people saw it, quite frankly, because it came in on a Saturday. But 2 people saw it and signed up immediately, and 8 of 10 sales came from it. So the only other mentions will be in my normal Friday newsletter. I don't even know yet whether I'll ever run another low-carb group. I might not. And actually, if I were to begin again, well, it doesn't make any sense to me to create a new list about low-carb, because that isn't who I am. But anyway, so I said to her, I don't want to segment. I want my newsletters and the very rare interim mail out on a special topic to be all about my work and my clients. And weirdly, much more so than I'd expected, the 2 sides, low carb and business coaching, are going hand in hand, because people doing one are finding benefits in the other, particularly in the areas of mental clarity and just greater overall health. I've made this choice deliberately. I don't want to get into internet marketing strategies. And I told her to go and resubscribe herself. Then I said, thank you for sharing your opinion. I'm sure others have simply unsubscribed, but I never get notifications of that because I don't want to know, honestly. It's not my game. Those who don't like it versus those that do. I focus on those that do, always. Yeah. And I write Friday's newsletter for myself and for those who write to tell me how much they enjoy it, rather than marketing purposes again. That's what I do with the podcast too. We create content for those who want to listen to it. And of course, every email has an unsubscribe link, so anyone can go at any time. Also, I don't really do different things. It's all me being of service to people, which is another reason not to segment. I do appreciate your feedback, and I know it's useful because actually I still work with her in Ask Judith. And for me to know her worldview, a bit like Alice said last week, it helps me work out how I feel. And I did point out to her that the one email that she unsubscribed from, the first 8 words were, I'm writing about the next low carb group. So there's your delete point right there at the end of the 8th word. So I didn't actually waste anybody's time where they had to read all the way through to see that I was trying to make a sale. So I went through the full range of emotions, but I'm really pleased that she got me to think about it. And as Alice says, it helps you, the creator, make up your mind about what you're doing, what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah. I'm exactly like you. The first thing I do when I set up a new mailing list is I turn off the notify on unsubscribes, because I'm not interested, and you'd focus on those rather than what you want, which is more subscribers. And I do that for all my clients, so they're not troubled by them as well. And in our group, our writing group, when we get critiqued, it's very much an opinion, and someone's opinion, and sometimes people vehemently disagree with each other about a piece of work.
Yeah, because it's subjective, that's the point, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And the other thing is that you have to, work out. I've just been through this thing about adverbs, because somebody of the people on You Write On were saying I was using a lot of adverbs. And I didn't even know what they were, to be honest, Judith. I had to go and look it up. They're words that end in "ly." So assuredly, and things like that.
Yes.
So then there's this adverbless.com that you can drop your writing into and get rid of all the adverbs. And then
you don't get rid of all of them, do you? But certainly there are nice techniques to learn where instead of saying happily something, you can say content in one word and not use the adverb,
Or you can do what I'm learning about, which is show, not tell. So by the person's actions and body language,
you can see that they're happy or content. Yes, good one. Yeah.
So it's a good step in the right direction.
Yeah.
I did take it on board.
Yeah.
But that means, and also it gives you a lot of more words in your word count to write better, like description and things.
Yeah.
But you have to take. Sometimes you can strip all. What we're all striving for is our own voice. And interestingly, that's what you strive. Remember we had that conversation when you said, "What will I put in the newsletter?" And I said, "Well, you can tell them about your line dancing."
Mm.
You're striving for your own voice. And to be unique, and that's exactly what you're striving for in writing. And if you have to learn the rules. It's like old Picasso, isn't it? You have to learn the rules so that you can then judiciously break them.
Absolutely, first break all the rules. Great book.
Yeah, absolutely. And what else was I going to say about this? The creative thing. Yes. Oh, and I did find at one point when I was getting going again after Steve died that I was doing a course and I had a mentor, and then I would talk to you and I would seek opinions from everyone else because I didn't feel very sure of what I was doing. And you get to a point where you just think, I don't have any core here. I don't have any strong core. I'm waving about in the wind. And then as I went along and I got stronger and stronger and more definite and certain about how I wanted to do things, it felt much better. So you do have to be careful not to take advice from too many people, and make sure the people you're taking advice from are people who've either done what you want to do. This is just my barometer of who I'll take advice from. They've got to have done what I want to do or achieved what I want to achieve. Otherwise, it's just their opinion again, isn't it?
I mean, there's another commercial, more crudely commercial aspect to this, which is I mainly write that newsletter for myself as a writer. I've made that commitment. I don't know how long I've done it now, but a long time. And it goes out every Friday at 10 o'clock. And just like our podcast, which has been missed over the last 5 weeks by, not the whole world, but a core of fans who enjoy it, which is very encouraging to us, I think. People write back to me, sometimes only one last Friday on the segmentation issue, obviously, but it was Veronica Pullen, who is a marvellous person you want to be corresponding with when you're talking about segmentation. And she said, I totally agree with you, Judith. And that was very reassuring. But I write that newsletter for myself as a writer, for those people that love to read it. And thirdly, I offer things where they might, if they want, to choose to pay me money. But the first one I do as a writer. The second one, I don't know why I do that. I suppose also as a writer. So it's lovely to have readers enjoying it. And I would love to grow that readership, even if they never spend a bean. But the third context is that this lady that gave me the feedback, if she has ever been a paying client, is not going to be one in the future.
Yeah.
And so she's not my ideal client. I'm not writing it for her. She's not my ideal reader either. But several of the new people that joined the low carb group this week said, your classic thing, I've been watching this develop for some time.
Yeah.
So they looked at me doing it myself. They looked at me doing it one-to-one. They looked at the pilot group. And then when I made the first commercial offering, they were in. And that's what we discussed last week about the early adopters and the rump, They're in the middle, in the rump, and they're ready. It's the beginning of the summer term. So they're watching. They never commented. They never wrote in when I made them a commercial offer that they opted in. So, but I can't separate that work from my other work. I didn't expect it to have a crossover, but it does. But it's still me helping people achieve results they want to achieve. So how is that a segment?
I know. As I say, I don't segment mine either. I just bung it all in under the same newsletter.
Well, and neither does Veronica, and she's the queen, like you, of this sort of thing. So I think we're all agreed, surprisingly, here, aren't we? I thought you might come on with some, serious reasons for doing it. Yeah. But can you think of a business or we wouldn't really encourage a person to wear multiple hats and have separate multiple projects where they needed segmentation, would we?
No, not anymore. definitely not. But I do still. I mean, I do segment to some degree when people come into my funnel initially, because when people arrive at either of my websites now, I've got a chooser section, which is where they self-identify and they go through what's rather not very nicely called an indoctrination sequence, which is just a series of emails giving information of value to their specific situation. So, and then they immediately then start getting my roundup newsletter every week. Or I'm not sure, to be honest. I might have segmented them so they don't get it for, say, a month, or until they finish the first series of indoctrination emails, giving them just the specific information that they need. And then I might start I think the tag goes on to them to say, okay to send to all, at the end of that series of initial emails. So I'm doing segmentation like that. But then when it comes to, the point where they've been through the thing, they know what, how I can help them and what to do about it, then I'll then start introducing them to all the other stuff, because it's, you might as well then, if they haven't bought the thing that was most appropriate at the beginning, then they're not going to buy immediately, and you've got to give them time to find out everything that you do and how you can help them.
Now, I lost you a bit audio-wise in the middle of that. Okay. Were you saying effectively that they choose one of three at the beginning, but if they get to the end of that and they haven't, that you show them the other stuff as well?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. All right. So
and I show them the other stuff as well by sending a weekly newsletter.
Yes. Okay.
So it's adding value, and I think if people are interested in what you're interested in, they're going to get value from a newsletter. I get enormous value. I mean, I actually. So
they self-select as not requiring you to segment because they're interested in the whole story, not part of it.
Yeah, and the very fact that they stay subscribed.
Yes.
And believe me, I get a few unsubscribes every week. I know that.
Yes, so do I. But we want that, don't we? Because we want to be honing the list to people who are fully engaged.
Yes. And, people might be surprised. They would be very surprised, I think, at how small my list is now, because I do regular clean out.
Me too.
If people don't open for, the last 10 emails, if they don't open any of them, then they're gone.
Yeah.
Because I pay for this. I pay on drip for the size of my list now.
Yes.
So it's you've got to work out. I think you've got to work out what's best for your ideal client, and yourself. And
a point I made in my newsletter was my business is me, so I can't segment bits of me. It's not in my nature to show some people some bits of me and not other bits. What you see is what you get with Judith Morgan. Do you want it or what?
I've got a wonderful mental image now of you doing the dance of the seven veils.
If I were you, I'd just get rid of that immediately. You don't want that in your psyche.
What, even now?
No.
Even nowadays?
No, not even now. No, honestly.
I might find a picture, a propos.
No. Let's go up this route.
Oh, where were we? We're doing.
I think we're nearly done, actually, on this. I think we're agreeing. I expected you to give me a good argument. You've made some nice logical points of which I was already aware. You, me, and Veronica Pullen are agreed. That's enough for me.
Absolutely. I think that the overall thing is you've got to run your business to suit you.
Yeah. Well, quite. I wrote the book of that same title, if you remember.
Yeah.
And it just helped me do that. And as did Alice's thing last week, it helped. If that's what we, trust yourself to run your business your way. And if they don't like it, they're not ideal clients. And she wasn't saying she didn't like it. She was offering me gratuitous feedback, unsought. I know. Well, that's okay. We're all of us often on the receiving end of unsolicited feedback.
Yes. And you've got to be steadfast enough to know when that feedback suits.
Well, I think if you get, let's say, in a typical week, one gets, say, 3 to 5 unsubscribes and occasionally a piece of unsolicited feedback, I think the 3 to 5s is feedback. It's feedback enough, isn't it? And as long as we're adding 3 to 5 at the front end and the majority of them staying and it's solidifying, we're all right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes, I had. I loved talking. You just reminded me of your book then, and I loved that picture you shared of someone reading your book on their holiday.
Oh yeah, nice, wasn't it?
Where were they on a golf?
I'm trying to find that out. I've asked her, where are you? But she's gone quiet, so perhaps she's stopped Facebooking for the rest of her holiday, which is probably not a bad idea.
And she's probably reading your book. Yes. Mm. Let's talk about word of the week then.
Yes. Do you want to go first?
Yes. I've had a very, well, you probably saw me put my foot very firmly in my mouth on Facebook. I had a very sociable week, and I went out to dinner with a couple of people on separate occasions. I went to have lunch with Kate Cocker. I had a lovely time with Kate. We had a really nice time. But what it did make me realise was how tiring I find it now sitting one-to-one with people. Even if it's in a social context, I find it quite, it makes me anxious beforehand, and then we're sitting there and I feel performance anxiety. So I decided, apropos of no particular, social event that I'd been to, that I was going to only see people on a one-to-many basis, not a one-to-one. 1 to 2, fine. 1 to 3, fine. 1 to 4, fine.
So it's not all on you mean?
Yes, and I don't know why I feel like that, but I have always felt like that. I mean, I've got a friend, Pete, who I always have lunch with when I go home, and we used to have lunch once a month. I really enjoy seeing him and spending time with him, but that whole sitting across the table looking at each other thing, I find really awkward.
Okay.
So I think I'm going to either sit sideways on with people if I can't avoid doing a one-to-one.
Yeah.
And I'm going to, when someone says to me, "Would you like to go out for dinner?" I'm going to say yes. And who else can we invite? Because I'm not good one-to-one, and I've realised that. But what I did was I stupidly put a thing on Facebook saying, I've discovered this about myself. And every single person that I'd been out for dinner or lunch with in the last week contacted me and said, "Oh, I thought we had a really nice time. What's the problem?" So then I had to go back.
I think the very sociable people of the world find it difficult to understand this, don't they? And they think there's something wrong with us who find that difficult. When I was being coached by Michael Neal, who was a star personality, I couldn't understand at the time why I found it so difficult to pack my bag, drag it to the lift, drag it down the lift, across the thing, up, put it in the boot of my car, drive to a hotel where you and I were running a workshop, meeting people, smiling, greeting, lovely, smiley people who wanted to hug and read your newsletter for years, love you, run a workshop, logistics, pay the bill, organise everybody's tea and coffee. I couldn't understand why I found that so draining. And he kept on saying, "Oh, no, it's lovely." And then when I discovered I was a creator, which is 50-50, it's like, oh, no, I understand it. And that was the best thing, honestly think, the best nugget from personal development ever for me was understanding that half of me was an introvert and that I had been over occupying the extrovert space. So everybody thinks I am an extrovert. I get anxiety before I go to meetings, before even virtual ones, before clients, and nobody would put you and I down in the anxious category. No. It's very confusing, and because you can speak on the stage, I can command, I can hold an audience in a room at a party on my humor and storytelling. We're not shy people, no. But some social circumstances are spectacularly draining. And having Pete and Eleanor out here and little Eleanor, we've had a lovely time. And to be fair, they've been very good about going off and on their own, exploring. But also, he's quite life and soulish. So actually, that takes the heat off you. Yeah,
totally. Yes,
yeah.
They chat. They can chat for England.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is great because I can just sit on the sunbed going, lovely.
Yes.
And we've had 2 nights on and 1 night off, and so I've recharged with the X Factor one night the other night, and I had some work to do, and that was nice having.
So what's your word, darling?
Sociable.
Ah, right, okay.
Because just because, that's it. Okay, so projects then.
No, I haven't done my word yet.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's all right. My word is summer, and it's my word because it is also my only season. I wish it could last all year long, 365 days of the year. I know that almost nobody agrees with me, and I don't care.
I'm the same. I love that. This has been a glorious summer for me, especially because I've been so much recovered. I mean, I started getting better halfway through last summer, so I was able to enjoy a lot of it. And this summer has been delightful.
Well, and of course, it's been spectacular weather in the UK. It's gone on for months, and it's still shiny now. And we've got about 20 degrees, which is perfectly nice, actually.
I'm a bit the opposite. I did have good experiences because I like new beginnings. So I did used to quite enjoy September, going back to school and feeling the excitement of everything just before it all settles down.
It's so.
I know it
foretells the 3 seasons I don't like.
Well, I'm going to spend this January, February, March going to the cruise, Las Vegas, and Australia.
Okay.
I've decided my 3 trips next year.
Okay.
So I'm looking forward.
Is that those 3 months? Are they the worst weather in stupor?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
So I'm going to come and go, and I'm going to have my log burning stove with my seasoned wood in between, and I'm going to enjoy it. Yeah. Okay, so projects then.
So I've got quite a lot to tell you in this section.
Ooh, really?
A company called Send Pilot wrote to me when I was at my brother's, I think, and asked me to try their gizmo for free for 7 days and then talk about it in a blog and a newsletter and even mention it in our podcast. I did try it. It didn't go especially well, and that wasn't their fault. Nomading is not ideal I don't have ideal desk conditions, and that often limits my focus and I don't know how to describe it really. I need a bigger desk to experiment with certain things, and I need a bigger desk to do accounts. I don't need a big desk at all to do with coaching, thank goodness. But if I was writing a book, I'd need a bigger desk. So, and it also didn't seem to me to do anything which Missing Letter spurts out. It takes a blog post and turns it into tweets with images attached, picking out different bits of the text and that I can customize completely with a calendar for later send. And SendPilot does the same thing as well, but I don't know whether it didn't work with Chrome or whether it's a beta test or something. I couldn't get it to work properly for me. You get 7 days for free. You don't have to put in your card to do that, but it wouldn't let me do it again. The man told me to do it a second time. I couldn't get it. It's nothing wrong with him. I think it was me, my work situation, my holiday, my computer. I like Missing Letter. And probably SendPilot's great too. So if anybody does the 7 days and finds it works, let us know. I'm also, I use WebEx, as you know, for my Small Business Big Magic conferences, but I chose to use Zoom for different reasons for my low carb conferences. And I'm using both at the moment, and they both have pros and cons. I thought it would be efficient to do all of it in one place. But Zoom makes something harder for me that WebEx makes easier, and vice versa. So I'm using both of them at the moment. And I quite like the separation that I know that all my low carb calls are in Zoom and all my Small Business Big Magic calls are in WebEx, funnily enough. And it's like when you've got two bank accounts and you need to use the green Lloyd's Bank checkbook for something and the blue Royal Bank of Scotland one for something else. It's quite nice to have the separation. Thirdly, and finally in this section, I also started a thing in August, which I love so much, I've kept it going in September. And it was in August, it was a little daily coloured-y thing on Facebook saying that my treat for today was going to be X.
Yes, I enjoyed those.
And it's evolved into a daily good thing in September. I enjoyed it as well because it's an appreciation really and a gratitude, and it reminds me to look for something to celebrate about each day. But it also makes a nice conversation starter on Facebook because people pile in and say, oh yes, me too, or welcome back to the podcast, or whatever it is. And during August, as I said to you last week, I abandoned all my Facebook marketing, and I've got no plans to restart it. But I did another radical thing. Somebody slightly, I don't know, I'm not going to say what they did, but it made me a little bit wobbly about Facebook, and I'm already quite wobbly about Facebook. So I converted all of my updates from public to friends. I've got quite a lot of friends. And I think of it, I think of Facebook as a list by another name. I've got a lot of them, and I'm going to experiment with, if only my friends see my posts, does it make any difference to my marketing outcomes? And I suspect it won't, but I love an experiment, me. Only one person's noted, a friend of mine who isn't a Facebook friend, but said, well, have you blocked me from your Facebook? No, but you're not a friend. She said, well, I don't want to become a friend because then I see too much stuff. Yeah, fine, that's your choice. But I've got, 1,600 friends on Facebook, and that's enough to market to.
Yeah, absolutely true. Yeah, I think you can go up to 5,000, but who wants?
You can, yes, you can. I mean, and I'll happily take it up to 5,000. But I've decided to stop showing all of my, just for September. Let's see what happens. All of my posts, which was what I used to do, were all set to public because it's all marketing for me. I don't have any need for it in my real life. So I'm just going to see whether marketing to my Facebook friends is as valuable to me as marketing to the whole wide world on Facebook.
So because I've always just had everything set public, but.
And I would keep going that in your circumstance. Something happened to me to make me feel anxious about doing that.
Oh, okay.
I'm not going to talk about it in public because I don't want to. No. I don't want to say what it was. But
okay, all right. I looked at our Right Club, the podcast stats, and in 6 weeks, I think it was 6 weeks we didn't broadcast. I think over the summer. We doubled our downloads.
Oh, wow.
And you'll be interested to know, I think, how we did. Well, I think what's happened is lots of people have lots of time, don't they? So they go looking for things to read or listen to on the sunbed or wherever it is they are having their holiday. And the other factor, I think, is that Steph arranged for 400 of our postcards that have got our literary bingo game on the back to go into the goodie bags at a literary festival. So obviously 400 people who hadn't ever heard of us before would have seen that there's a podcast about writers. So I'll be interested to see what happens with Own It, when we get the first episode of that up, whether we see a little jump in numbers. And so I'll be reporting on that.
So you don't know what happened in the 5 weeks we were off?
I can have a very quick look.
Yes, do.
Lots and lots of people contacting me with requests to come on the show, and I sort of reply sometimes quite rudely, have you actually listened to the show? We don't have guests. But then I remember, of course, that sometimes we do have guests. So.
No, well, we don't really. We have listener guests. We've only ever had listener guests and listener stand-ins.
Well,
we don't do marketing for third parties. I get lots of requests as well. I just say, people who want to have a nasty, scammy blog post on my blog. And I think, have you read my blog? It's called Judith Morgan, and all 1,250 blog posts have been written by Judith Morgan. What are you on?
Yeah. Well, this tells us that we have actually suffered by not being around because we were
we know that, don't we? We know that. That's a pattern we've seen before.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what happens now we're back, whether it jumps up and then...
How much have we suffered? What's our average download in August?
Well, in June we had 2,200, July we had 2,500, and August was 1,400.
So it's halved. Yeah.
That's quite marked, isn't it? Yeah. But we'll see what happens now. Now we're back.
So they like the newness of this, the newsiness on the Friday, whereas Right Club has got a longer shelf life, has it?
Yes, I think so. And I think when people, who are writers, also, we're a lot more topical, I think, or people perceive that we're topical, although we try not to be. And we do talk about evergreen topics. But I think Right Club is very much a not.
It's more evergreen, isn't it?
So people would probably tend to work back through all the episodes, I would think.
I think the occasional newbie to ours does as well, but it is the occasional newbie, not 400 from postcards in goodie bags.
And now they've got 200 to work, nearly 200 to work back through. So it's a bit more of a daunting task.
It is. Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. But, look at that. All time, 85,000 downloads. We're approaching the 100,000 download mark.
That's what you always say when you tell us it's 85,000. I mean, that is an optimist of criminal proportion. There you go.
We're now 6,000 nearer.
No, we've always been at about where we are.
Well, when we last had this conversation, we were.
But we're 1,000 nearer than we were a month ago.
Yeah, all right then.
Or 1,400 nearer.
1,400, exactly. Yeah. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it on the projects front.
Okay.
Have I done mine?
Yes, you have.
Double downloads, yes. It's all about downloads for me. So who or what's impressed then?
Well, despite my mixed feelings about Facebook's done me a favour in the last week. When I was away for 8 days in August, my hostess down here in the West Country remembered how much she loves her solitude. And when I came back, she wasn't very pleased to see me. Now, I'm exaggerating for effect. She told me when I arrived I could stay as long as I like, but she hadn't realised how, well, like we said with the lunch thing, and we're both, I'm the same as her. She's a little bit more left-hand side than I am, but she eventually fessed up and apologised and said, I'm so sorry, I've been a bit grumpy since you got back, but I realised how important my solitude is. So I agreed that I would do more house sitting and use this as a base. I told her in this conversation that on the 1st of September, I would start to make concerted efforts to do more house sitting so that I'm away more often and she gets more solitude. And I said I would start that on the 1st of September. So on the 1st of September, I said to Facebook, I'm back in the market for house sitting. And as a result of that, I'm going to Luton, Be Still My Beating Heart, for 9 days at the end of next week. And then at the end of October and beginning of November, I'm going to Suffolk for 2 weeks to cover for one of the ladies who's the daughter of a client. No, hang on a minute. The daughter of a client, both mother and daughter, are in my July pilot low carb group because the daughter's getting married, so I'm staying in their place on their honeymoon at the end of October, and they're both in it obviously because they'd like to lose a few pounds before the wedding. But I've got almost no knowledge of that bit of north of London where Luton is, so that's a first. But I do know Suffolk a bit, and two of my bestest friends live there half of the time, so I'll be able to see them, so that's lovely. But the thing I love about all this moving around is all the people I'm able to see, the connections made and remade and the new people discovered, and the things which switch from impossibly far away so Somerset to Suffolk is impossibly far away. House sitting there for 2 weeks means they're within an hour of me, so they become suddenly doable again. I like the variety of it. I like the driving. I like the countryside. I like the exploring. I like the chance to be with a cat or two now and again. And sooner or later, I could even charge for this, because the honeymoon couple said, how much do you charge? That was their first question. But as long as I'm comfortable, Wi-Fi'd up, warm, especially warm, down here is so cold, not today and not this summer, but when I arrived, if you remember, it's so cold down here that if I have to be here for the winter, I am contemplating and will buy thermal underwear. And that would be a first, and something that used to make me cry with laughter when I was a young woman, if you remember the Daymart catalogue. But now I would cry if I didn't have thermal underwear down here. Look how life changes, Nicola.
I've got a funny story about my nan and the Daymart.
Oh, well, you see, the nans, when our nans used to wear thermal underwear, we wouldn't have been seen dead in that. But now it's silky and lovely.
My nan sent off for a Daymart catalogue, and they refused her because she'd always paid cash.
You told me this. Yes, that's not creditworthy, is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's instalments, Daymart. They insisted you took their prohibitively expensive credit. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, but she was furious. I remember that.
Yes. I remember that story. You've told me that before. I didn't realise it was a Daymart story. How interesting.
Well, there you go. I would like to recommend to you Monday.com. It's a good cross between... It's a project management tool, very, very simple, and it's a good cross between... What was that one we were using with boards that I couldn't get on with? Trello. It's a good cross between a spreadsheet and Trello. It's a lot more left-brainy than Trello, which is funny because I thought I liked Trello, but I didn't. And it's very much simpler. So you basically have projects, and then you literally quickly type your tasks in a project, and then you go along and you say doing, stuck, or done. And it's color-coded, so it's really visually simple and easy to use. And I like the look of it a lot. I'm starting to use it just to... I'm not very good about getting things out of my head onto things like project boards, but I realised that it would help my client appreciate how many tasks are in a job. Yeah.
So she has access as well to it, does she?
She can just view, and then that means she can just go and see where each job stroke tasks within that job are.
Yes.
And if you I like the thing. It's I'm stuck. Oh, I'm waiting to hear back from so and so or whatever, and she can see at a glance where we're at, and not have to ask me. But although we do have weekly meetings where we update each other, so. I'm not sure how useful it's going to be yet, but I quite like the look of it, and I thought I would share it with our listeners.
Okay. Monday. Quite a lot of people I know who listen to this would like a project tool.
Well, there you go. It's a nice, simple one, and colourful for those visual people amongst us. There we go. That's another episode under the belt, Judith.
It is. We've done 2. That's marvellous.
So we'll talk to you next week, same time, same place.
Okay, see you then.
Bye.
Bye.
How do they do it? Not a care and suffering. Wanna step into their world. Who holds the key?
You've been listening to Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. The podcast is called Own It, Your Business and Your Life. Do come and visit us at ownitthepodcast.com. We'd love to hear your feedback. You can find out more about Judith and visit her on her website at judithmorgan.com, and you can find Nicola at nicolacairncross.com.